Alright, so now that we've got all of our visual elements ready, it's time to design our final dashboard layout. So let's start by adding a new tab, call it Dashboard. And what I want to do first is remove these grid lines. So in the View tab, I can just uncheck this grid lines option, and you'll see that now we have this nice blank canvas to work with. So now let's start with our title. We can write it into a cell directly, but I try to avoid writing in cells whenever possible and like to add objects instead, just because when building the dashboard layout, they're going to be much easier to move around and work with. So let's add a text box instead. Let's go to Insert, Shapes, and Text Box. Drag this in here. And before I write anything, let's think back to the dashboard's purpose. We know that the end users are going to be high school students. What they need is to learn about the job market in the US to make a career choice, and the dashboard is meant to use data to help them understand what wage and employment figures look like by industry. So let's use that. And instead of writing something more generic like wage and employment figures by industry, what I like to do is frame the dashboard title, especially when the dashboard is exploratory in nature, with a question. So we could do something like, what do wage and employment figures look like by industry? Again, you don't need to do this by any means. I just feel that it draws the user in a bit more and it makes it a little bit more personalized. So let's add some formatting here. You'll see that it does have a border instead, which we'll have to get rid of. Let's make the title bold and big to establish visual hierarchy. Let's make sure this fits. And let's make the black a little bit less black. So mute it down a bit. And remember, we want to leverage common reading patterns when designing our dashboard. So let's left align this title and place it in the top left here. Now, after posing that question, the next natural thing to do is to add the industry selector right below it. So we do need a cell for that because we're going to use a data validation list. So let's add that, go to Data, Data Validation List, and our source is going to be in our Data Prep tab with our list of industries. Press OK. Press OK. And let's see if this is working. Alright. Now let's apply some formatting. So again, maybe make this bold and bigger, but not as big as our title, because remember, we want to establish some sort of visual order and hierarchy. Again, make it a little bit less black. Maybe fill it with a light yellow, just so that the user kind of knows that they can modify this field. And let's just make sure the cell fits all of our values. It looks like this is the biggest one. Center it, maybe make it a little bigger, and let's align it with our title here. Now this is a working data validation list, but our formulas in our data prep tab are all tied to this cell right here. So what we can do is remove this list, go to Data, Data Validation, and clear it, press OK, and then just make this cell equal to this selection. Press OK. You'll see now we get leisure and hospitality, and if we move this around, we get information and everything, or all the visuals change accordingly. And now that we're doing this, I'm going to do the same for my other data validation list. So let's add one here. Now, it's not necessarily going to live in this cell, but we can move its position around later. So data, data validation, we want a list that is equal to these values here. So employees per 100 and average wages. Be careful not to select this one, because remember that this is the one that is going to change dynamically with the selection. So that's all set. Press OK. This is working. And now let's just tie this one Let's remove the list and make it equal to this one. Now it's not letting me select it for some reason, so I'm just going to click on another cell, shift with my arrows, press enter, and there we go. Now you may be wondering why we did the original drop downs in the first place if we were going to swap them out eventually, and I'll agree that it is a little bit of rework, but remember how valuable having these selections here was to building out the original visualizations and making the calculations. So it's a small price to pay, and it's easy enough to swap them out for the new drop-down lists. Alright, so now that we've got that working, it's time to bring in our visuals. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. This step can be a real pain if you let it. You can probably spend hours just dragging and aligning charts until you get the right look. So my suggestion is to figure out where you want each chart to live first, and once you have really outlined these spaces where each chart will live, then you can bring them in. So what I'm going to do to start is to just add text boxes that are going to represent the title of each chart. So we have average annual wage, and that's our bar chart. Let's format that real quick. No outline, bold, make it bigger but not too big to maintain the visual hierarchy. And again, let's tone down the black a bit and maybe center it. So that's our bar chart. Let's control and drag for our donut chart, which is share total employees. Again, control drag for our combo chart, which represents wage and employee trends. And one more click and drag for our map. Now, this isn't going to be the title for our map, but what is going to be the title is this drop down here, which is going to dynamically determine what the map is representing. I just wrote map here as a placeholder that we can move around and drag because we can't do the same with this cell. Alright, so we have the visual elements that we will eventually want to fit into this page. What we want now is to get an idea of what the size of our page is going to be. And my suggestion there is to A, always keep it at 100% zoom, and B, to use the width of your screen as the width of your dashboard. Now, if we use the height of the screen as well, you'll notice that this is pretty narrow and we're kind of running out of space already. But what we can do is just hide the ribbon here to gain a little bit more real estate, and we can hide it when we finish the dashboard as well so that our users don't see it. Now, again, I'm running Excel 365, and the way to hide that now is to use this drop down arrow here and enter full screen mode. But if you're not working with this version of Excel, in the past there was a ribbon icon here which you can click and then just select the option to always hide the ribbon, which will accomplish the same thing. So now it looks like we have a much better size for our dashboard that we can work with. And the fun part is to figure out where each one of these visuals is going to live. So to do that, let's think about what our main visual is. If we go back to the dashboard purpose and our audience, I think that the first thing that the high school students are going to want to look at are the annual wages by industry. I think at the end of the day, they just want you to show them the money. So we're going to place this under our drop down in the left here, which will really take advantage of a nice F reading pattern. So let's move these out of the way and add just a placeholder. So let's just add a shape for where our bar chart can live. Alright, so we've addressed the wages now, which will be what students look at first, but after that they may be interested in how many opportunities they may have for whatever industry they select. So the next thing will be our share of total employees. So let's bring that closer over here. And we can Control Shift and drag the shape for this visual. Now this is a bar chart and this is a donut chart, which isn't going to take us much space, so we can make this much smaller. And we can take advantage of this space for our combo chart, which visualizes wage and employee trends. So let's bring this here. Again, Control, Shift, drag. And this is two charts stacked on top of each other, so it's going to be a little bit taller. And finally, we have our map, which can live here quite nicely, especially since it is a bigger visual. So let's bring this up here. Control, drag. Keep some nice spacing between the charts. And there we go, not too bad. So now let's actually drag the real chart title somewhere here. This is kind of blocking our view. And make it the same size as this. So now that we have our layout, we can show our ribbon again since we will be using it. And let's make it bold, muted black, and I think it's size 16. Center that. And before I go ahead and adjust this column size, it's going to change the size of my rectangle here. So I'm just going to go to Size and Properties. Don't move or size. And now I can do this freely. Alright, so that's not exactly centered, but we can make some of these smaller. There we go. Again, make it filled with yellow just so that users know that they can move this around. Get rid of this title. And now I think we're ready to actually bring our visuals in. So let's do this one by one. Grab the bar chart, select, press Ctrl X to cut, and bring it in here with Ctrl V. Just get rid of the title since we have that covered. And this is where the alignment tools really come in handy. I'm going to select this and then press Shift and select my shape underneath as well. And if we go to Shape Format, we can align it to the left and align it to the top. And now what we need is to make the rest of the adjustments. So make it narrower, make it taller, maybe we do have a little bit more space this way. There we go. So I took up a little bit of space here, but I'm sure we can make it up somewhere. So if I send this to the back, let's get rid of our shape. And this is starting to take shape. Now let's bring in our donut. Control X, Control V to copy. Get rid of our title. And let's move this up. Now we can do the same alignment tricks. Align left, align top. Let's make this smaller. And this is a common issue with donut charts. They tend to size themselves really small within the size of the overall chart, but we can make it bigger ourselves. That's better. Maybe make the donut hole a little smaller, change this to 50. Alright. Send to back. Get rid of this. That's looking better. Let's bring in our combo chart. Select one, Shift, select the other, cut, and paste in here. Now this one, we're going to have to juggle a little bit. So I'm just going to fast forward through my alignment process, but as you'll see, all I'm doing is resizing, changing the labels around a little bit so that they fit better, and just overall making sure that they fit within the area that I assigned to it. And finally, our map. Select, Control X to cut, bring this in here. Remove the title, and I'm going to, let me move over, remove the legend as well, since honestly the color itself does a good enough job showing comparison, and we can hover over the states to get the actual value. So let's get rid of this. And let's use our tricks one more time. Left, top, resize, get rid of the border here. Send this backwards. Alright, so let's look at what we have here. Full screen mode. And it doesn't look bad at all. Maybe we can shift these a little bit to the right. We can use the arrows just to be careful. We can make this a little bit smaller after we made it gigantic. But overall, I think this is looking great. And most importantly, it is working perfectly. So that did take us a while, and trust me, if we hadn't taken the time, used those shapes and text boxes to really determine where we wanted each element to live, then it would have taken much, much longer. But the important thing is that now that we do have this set up, then we're really focusing the user's attention and guiding them through a logical story, which is all we want from our dashboard layout.